Hello, everyone, and welcome to this informational chat and opportunity to ask questions about the permaculture design course that's being hosted by Wild Abundance and the School of Integrated Living at Earthaven Eco Village. That is a mouthful. In June of this year. My name is Chloe, and I am one of the co-facilitators of the program. And I have been engaging with the living world in a curious and reciprocal way as long as I can remember, having awareness of being able to do so. And I have been studying and practicing permaculture for the last 20 years or so. And this is my first time co-facilitating a permaculture design course, and I'm really excited to kind of take a lot of hands-on practical skills and knowledge and experience that I've been cultivating over the last decade or so, applying a lot of these skills and bringing it into a teaching setting and a facilitation setting. And really excited to be working with my friend Zev, who's going to introduce himself in a minute. And just bringing our passions and our skills together, and to be at Earthaven, which is just such an incredible example of humans engaging with permaculture in a really dynamic way. And we'll talk more about that as the call goes on. So that's a little bit about me.
I'm Zev Friedman, and I am the other instructor, the other lead instructor, along with Chloe this time. And I'm sitting on my deck at the butterfly house at Earthaven, and with the carpenter bees buzzing loudly around me in process of eating the deck. And I've been living at Earthaven for 13 years now and teaching. Well, I began apprenticing to teach permaculture design certification courses with Patricia Allison in 2008 and have been teaching them since then. And trying to live this life as well. And when I say this life, that can mean a lot of different things to different people, which we'll be going into very deeply in the PDC. What are all the styles of permaculture, the things that can mean? It's a very diverse array of ways of life. And I feel like I'm a student of it still, but I've also been farming and doing forest agriculture and working on natural buildings and doing all the skills like Chloe was referring to, kind of learning the hard skills, as well as I worked as a permaculture consultant for 12 years and doing lots of teaching during that time. I now run an organization called Co-operate Western North Carolina, which is a regional mutual aid and cooperative economics network in Western North Carolina that is an extension of permaculture thinking into economic and social and relational design work. So I'll stop there for now and hand it over to Nikki Anne.
Yeah, hello, I'm Nikki Anne, and I'm in Gateway neighborhood at Earthaven Eco Village right now. And I am one of the co-directors of the School of Integrated Living, which lives within Culture's Edge nonprofit. And we are Earthaven's main branch of our educational mission. And gosh, I moved to Earthaven 13 years ago, I think, and co-founded Soil, the School of Integrated Living, 11 years ago. And it's been one of my biggest joys at Earthaven is hosting students and visitors to come check out this developing eco-village, this experiment, and with permaculture at its base. And I am delighted that this PDC is collaborating with Wild Abundance and Co-operate WNC to be in this village setting. And so we have over 115 people who live here as residents who are in support of this educational intensive that happens for 2 weeks on the land. And this time it's in June. So I'm excited to answer any questions and to get to know some of you. So thanks for being here with us.
Awesome. So I'm going to just give a brief overview of the PDC now, just to kind of give you a sense of the overall flow and the structure of it. For anyone who isn't familiar with it, the Permaculture Design Certification course is a global standard core curriculum, that there are thousands of teachers around the world teaching a 72-hour curriculum, which is was developed and kind of standardized by the Permaculture Institute in Australia, which is where the word and kind of lineage of permaculture originated. And then most PDCs are significantly longer than 72 hours, including this one, because what makes it more meaningful is to engage regional content and content that comes along with the kind of expertise and experience of the instructors and the community where a PDC is based. And ours is like that. So this is a 14-day PDC. There's one break day in the middle, so it's 13 days of content. There are PDCs that are as long as 22 days to allow room for a lot more hands-on and a lot more specific content. People do them stretched out across the course of a year. It's kind of all different formats, but this is the one that we're doing in collaboration with Wild Abundance because it feels like it's more accessible to people traveling in from far away, and getting a kind of a diverse group of participants who can access this format in this amount of time. And so during the course, we'll be going, one of the permaculture principles is to design from patterns to details. That means going from the general to the specific, making the big decisions first, and then assembling little decisions around those big primary decisions. And that's how the course is structured too. We start out with the general, with the big ideas and the history and the principles and ethics of permaculture, talking about some social context and kind of what role we see permaculture playing on the planet right now, in the dealing with the crises of climate change and warfare and economic inequalities that are huge issues on the planet right now. And then we move from that kind of general picture into more and more specific information about aquaculture and certain types of farming and building and energy systems and animals, but always coming back to what we think permaculture excels at is making the connections between things evident. So we're not going to be delivering information, the most information on pasturing cows. People could go somewhere else and get deeper information on that, but we'll be delivering information about how pasturing cows can be related to composting, can be related to annual agriculture, energy systems, and making those kind of systems work. They're interrelated. And then during the PDC, we'll also be culminating all of that work in the design projects. And the design projects are where participants get a chance to apply all of these ideas and information and understandings to some real life sites and clients, acting as if you were a professional permaculture designer, interviewing clients who are doing a farm or a home site, or a pasture. In this case is one of our projects. We have 3 different design sites, and people will be breaking up into groups of 5 and working over the last 6 days of the class to develop permaculture designs and then present them to everyone at the end. And then we'll have a big party. So that's the basic flow of the class. And I'll stop there for now.
So I'll share a little bit about what, as Zev and I have been kind of dreaming and scheming the details of this class, what are some features that I'm really excited about, and then I'll give you some space to share about that too, Zev. Like we both shared, we've been in this world of kind of trying to engage design and systems for more regenerative, reciprocal, sustainable relationships between humans and the rest of the living world. And there are a lot of really beautiful concepts and ideas. A lot of permaculture experimental sites and ideas have come from tropical regions. There are a lot of really great ideas that when you put them into practice here or in other places that we've lived, they don't work very well, or they need to be adjusted. And so we're both really excited to bring that like hands-on real world experience and share not only sort of like recipes about step 1, step 2, step 3, this is the way to do something, but like Zev was saying, really dig deeper into how we can see and engage with patterns and systems and really root that in not only the bioregion where we live, but our own life and our own limitations within our own lives. Because a beautiful permaculture design that's really well thought out, that requires more time and maintenance than the person or community tending that site can give it, is not going to be successful. We need to include ourselves in the equation as well, and our own human resources, our own capacities, our own limitations, our own joys, our own sorrows. So weaving all those things into how we bring this course to be is exciting for us. And I'll let Zev talk more about Earthaven because he lives there. I've spent a lot of time there over the years too. But being at a site which has really from its inception been engaging with permaculture principles and practices in design, in practice, in renewing designs and changing, in receiving feedback, integrating feedback, it's really just such a powerful way to engage with this learning, because you can see it, you can feel it, you can talk to people who've been living it. And so that's another exciting part about this permaculture course. And it's very beautiful here in June, and there will be fireflies, and there will be group meals 3 times a day, beautiful homemade food, a lot of it locally and from the land here are there at Earthaven. So that's another piece that for me has really drawn me into facilitation, is just what can happen when a group of people who have a shared desire and intention to do something life-giving with our interactions on this earth. You know, so much of what we see humans doing just doesn't feel very life-giving or positive. And so to come together with a group of people who at least have that desire and that will to make a different choice and to engage in a different way, in and of itself can be so powerful and transformative. And then the connections that will be built over that time, the ways that we learn from each other. We're all teachers and students in this container together, and that's a really beautiful thing to be experiencing as a community over such a long stretch of time. You know, this isn't just a weekend course. It's like we're going to be living and eating and sharing together. So that's another piece that I'm really excited about. And a piece of my background that I didn't share is I've been working with Wild Abundance for the last 10 years. And as an instructor, mostly doing strategy and administration and copywriting. But I've witnessed this transformative, like deep connection that can happen when students come, even for just a weekend class, and are enveloped in a space where some of these dreams and ideals and visions that many of us have are being actualized. There's just like this renewal and rejuvenation and inspiration that I've seen happen over and over and over again. And so I'm excited to be a part of that in this course also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just segueing right out of what you're saying, Chloe, in terms of what I'm most excited about is what I call transformative education, but it's like what it's really talking about is understanding how do we as people grow and move towards what we most long to feed in the world and in life. And I feel like the PDC can be a really beautiful instrument and vehicle and container for that. It's bringing all this information in and all these concepts and stuff, but like Chloe is saying, it's also creating this relational container where we're trying to make it safe enough for us to look at our lives and the choices that we're making and how they're lined up with the things we most care about, and if there are ways that we can design our lives to actually be the way we want them to be and to be contributing to the healing of people and the planet, and of our communities and of our relationships. So that's one of the things that's kind of like a sneaky goal of the Permaculture Design Certification courses for me. It's like not stated in the curriculum, but that's it, is because all this information doesn't come to much unless it lands in us and has a place to live, and a way for us to live it out. So that's something I'm really excited about. I'm also really grateful. Like when I moved to Earthaven, a big part of why I finally was able to make the leap, even though I had been coming here for over 10 years before I moved here and had friends and community here, was that I was teaching permaculture classes, and I recognized Earthaven as this amazing living classroom for permaculture classes, a 330-acre property where many people have been putting everything they have into it for decades to try to create and understand what it means to create actual regenerative healing systems at all levels, at the physical and the buildings and the relational and the social and the economic, birth and death. And so to be able to teach it here where you all participants get to land in that living system that is our life, and then kind of learn from elements of that, is really exciting for me to share. And then the last thing I'll speak to is when Wild Abundance approached us about doing the PDC here, I was really clear because I work full-time with my organization, Co-operate WNC, and we're focusing on cooperative and community scale approaches. How do we kind of regrow village culture as a basis for human thriving and surviving? And I said I'm willing to do the PDC if we can focus on cooperative strategies and how we can do permaculture not just as homesteads and individual families, but working in larger collaborative arrangements where people can rely on each other and grow trust and have more capacity through that. And so we're going to be emphasizing those kinds of examples and design approaches in the class. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to do that. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I want to kind of pick up on what you were saying, Zev, with this embodied learning experience. And I was just talking with another instructor of ours around how we learn best. And we're taught to believe that facts and knowledge are like the meat of our learning. And yes, they're important, but it's really through stories and the lived experience that really the wisdom and knowledge actually gets embedded in our bones and flesh. And so I think of this 30-year experiment as this storied landscape. And so that's what this classroom, this living classroom, is as a village. It's an offering for others to learn from the experiments and the lessons learned and the mistakes and the successes and the collaborations that in this intensive 2-week experience. And I just want to just say that word again. It's intense. There's an intensive, it's an immersion. And so it's so rich, and it asks us to, bring as robust selves as we can for this short amount of time. I say short, I mean, 2 weeks is also a long amount of time. So it's however you look at it. And so we do our best as staff, not only Chloe and Zev as instructors, but there's a handful of us as support staff that are backing up them and all of the participants to have the most amount of well-being possible to take in the information and hopefully have it land as embodied knowledge. And so we mentioned the food being cooked, but there's also some other staff that support check-ins every day and are available throughout the day to kind of check in on how your lodging's going. And we have a wellness bundle that we have and can support people in navigating what it's like to be out of your comfort zone and also in an environment that might be really different from where you live. So it's different here, and we don't have street lights. There's hazards from the natural world that with our alertness, we remain safe with them, but whether that's snakes or ticks or uneven ground. And so we're just here to help that your whole being arrive and be tended as you're doing this deep learning journey. Yeah, and it really, as Zev said, with the transformative learning experience, there's a community and a village within the village and community that you all, if you participate, belong to. And that's been so beautiful to see that cohesion and those threads of connection really live well beyond these 2 weeks. So yeah, I just get excited to support that as one of those support staff members. Maybe this is a good time to lead into question answer.
Yeah, let's open it up to questions. I just want to mention briefly before we get into that there are only 3 spots left in the course. So it's almost full. and you can register. I'll just drop the link to where the registration happens. The registration is through Wild Abundance. You can click the link on, there's a class page on the soil website too. So on the Earthaven, you can get there through Earthaven and soil, or you can get there through Wild Abundance, but the actual registration happens through Wild Abundance. And it's a 2-step registration process. So you register for the course, and then you also have to register for a meal plan. So it's not an optional meal plan. We're all going to be taking meals together. And then you have the choice to find your own lodging and accommodation, camp for free, or try to book lodging through Earthaven, and that's another process. So there's kind of the education, the food, and the lodging are 3 different pieces, but the course itself and the food have to happen together for you to be fully enrolled in the course. And yeah, there's just 3 spots left. So I imagine they will get filled pretty soon, and I'll just put the link to the class page in the chat, and we can start with the Q&A.
Thanks, Chloe.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question.
Someone on the conversation said something about agroforestry. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Are you wondering what types of agroforestry we're going to cover in the PDC?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a passion of mine. Agroforestry is, and one of the things that I've done the most hands-on work with also, and especially Appalachian kind of adapted agroforestry systems. Like Chloe was saying, a lot of the most prominent agroforestry systems in the world are tropical, because it's kind of easier in tropical places. But there's also some really beautiful temperate agroforestry systems historically and currently. So I do a lot of coppicing and pollarding. I don't know if you know those terms, but oh yeah.
Yes, of course.
And living fences, and doing experiments with rotating annual cropping with trees in kind of mid stage successional farming systems. Also, one of the design projects actually for the PDC is with a 5-acre silvopasture conversion that 2 women here are leading, turning an existing forest of dying hemlock trees into a silvopasture, including living fences, primarily for sheep. So that's a pretty interesting thing that's going on here. There's also the Earthaven forest management plan is pretty interesting. The history here of how the forests have been managed for different types of yields, especially buildings. And we have a full forestry plan put together by a previous member of Earthaven that calls for all kinds of different management for different sections of the forest on different timescales and for different objectives, including food and medicine and timber production and wildlife habitat. So there's a lot to learn from here. We'll actually have, I believe, 4.5 hours of sections that explicitly include agroforestry content, but I imagine we'll be referring to it in passing in a lot of other sections because it's such a pivotal core component of permaculture and regenerative land systems.
Well, I want to also mention, for those of you who found out about this call through Earthaven and soil, we want to offer you this 5% discount, and Zev can also share the code that he has for a 5% discount too. So if you do decide to sign up, that influences the tuition with Wild Abundance. So that I just want to make that available.
Is there a spiritual component to the Earthaven? Do y'all have a sanctuary or anything like that on property?
You go ahead, Zev. Either way.
Well, I'm curious what we will each say. There are a lot of spiritual components to Earthaven. There's not a unified or monolithic set of spiritual practices, right?
It's just a sacred space that's set apart.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of different overlapping groups of people that have different spiritual practices and places on the land that we consider sacred in different ways. And it's quite a mosaic. It's kind of like a microcosm of the larger world, I think, that we're coming together here with all of our own lineages and all of our own ancestral beauties and wounds, and making an ecosystem out of that and putting them all in relationship to each other. So yeah, I think that's what I'll say. Nikki Anne.
Yeah, and sure, I think a lot of people would say all of our land is sacred, everything is sacred. And sure, there's maybe some PowerPoints for certain people. As far as structures, the one thing I would feels noteworthy to mention is that one of our neighbors has a Zendo, and there's meditation there every day. And that's often something that our participants may choose to take advantage of in that 0 hour, before breakfast if a meditation is happening. But it's always open for sitting meditation.
And I will say, in terms of the PDC, a thread that has connected Zev and I since we became friends like over a decade ago is, I guess, what you could call in a word like animacy. And so with permaculture design courses, especially by and for middle-class white people, of which there are many, I am a middle-class white person, so no, I'm not like criticizing that population, but there can be this sort of like mechanistic way of looking at things, kind of like we're looking at nature as like the ultimate engineer, and nature is this other thing outside of us, and we're copying the machinery that nature has created. And while there's some threads of that ring true and that we bring into the PDC, and please speak up, but I feel like I can speak for both of us, Zev, we really are holding it in a little more of a reverent way and an interrelated way, and acknowledging nature as something that's alive within all beings, including ourselves. And not just looking at like water as a resource or a source of potential energy, but also as a being. And so in that way, there's a spiritual element that will be infused in the PDC. And as I was saying, like not in a monolithic way, not like pressuring anybody to relate with the other than human world in a way that doesn't feel comfortable or aligned with their own spiritual beliefs, but just bringing up the possibility that we can be interrelating with our kin who are not all human, and intending all of our different relations with that kind of respect of that we want to give any community that we're involved in, whether they're human or other than human. That's kind of foundational to how both Zev and I see the world and practice permaculture, and hope to continue learning and improving our capacity and becoming stronger and more attuned in that way. So I just want to name that piece too, that there is like you could say a spiritual element to the PDC as well.
Well, it sounded very indigenous. I was wondering how far it was from the Cherokee Nation, because I'm quarter Cherokee, so that's what I'm looking into also. That's great. But as I do have another one to get onto, I thank y'all very much for this evening, and I will be in touch one way or another.
All right. Very nice to meet you both. And everyone else who's on the recording. And if those folks who receive the recording still do have questions, just feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out through Soil or through Wild Abundance, and we're happy to answer your questions too. So if you're sitting with a question that's kind of, you're on the fence and you're sitting with a question, please reach out and answer it, and we'd love to engage with you in conversation.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. That seems.
Good night.